Oh my god, it's freezing cold. Love to be Canadian. So whenever I annotate, I always need to have the book, obviously. They're called Alohaster. Hello, my little raindrops. Would be quite something if it was raining right now, but it is snowing. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to your new home. My name is Desiree. It's so great to have you here. Today we're going to be doing something very fun, and in a sense it's making me nostalgic because this is one of the very first videos I ever posted on this channel a little bit under a year ago, and that is how I annotate my books. So little story time for you guys. One of the main reasons why I even started my YouTube channel was because I had so many people asking me, how do you annotate? How do you do it? How do I do it as an individual, as well as how you do it in general? And it's kind of tricky to answer such a broad question on TikTok when you only have like 3 minutes to talk, or on an Instagram post where you can't fully explain what you're trying to explain. And so that's one of the major reasons why I started this channel. And now here I am a little bit under a year later, and I've found that I love making content so much. And so I kept going with this channel, and honestly it's one of the best decisions I've made in a very long time. But anyways, I'm not here to talk about that. I am here to tell you guys my updated annotating systems and how I annotate now a little bit under a year later. So before we even get started, I want to start off by saying that I will not be explaining what annotating is in a general sense. I will be explaining how I annotate personally. Don't expect me to give you a clear and precise definition of what is annotating, how do you do it, or, you know, this is not a textbook definition type of video. This is a very personal definition of what annotating is. And that is how it should be done, because annotating is a very personal and unique thing. It is very unique to you. Like, the way I annotate and the things that I annotate are not going to be the same as yours. And that's normal. That's how it should be. Anyways, just a little disclosure, warning, whatever you want to call it. This is not the only way to annotate, nor should you let yourself be limited by what I'm about to show you, explain to you. You do you. Honestly, that is what it is. But I'm just doing this to, you know, update you guys on how I've been annotating, as well as just provide you with some sort of guidance if you're a beginner and you really don't know where to start. Hopefully this video can kind of guide you through it a little bit until you can develop your very own systems. So how is this video gonna go? I'm gonna try to be as organized as I possibly can. I have a couple books that we're gonna flip through together so that I can show you how I use certain products, as well as the types of things that I annotate. So we're gonna be going over how I use tabs, how I use highlighters, how I use pens, both like a regular pen and glitter pens, how I build my annotating systems, the type of things I annotate. We're just gonna do a full annotating 101 that is personal and unique to me. So let's hop right into it. For starters, let's talk about the supplies that I like to use. So whenever I annotate, I always need to have the book, obviously. So once you have your book chosen, then you actually start getting your supplies ready. I always have a bookmark. These are bookmarks that I make myself. RainyDaysLibrary as a business kind of turned into a bookmark shop in the past couple months. I did close the shop until this summer though, because I am taking this time to focus more on social media as well as my career and university. But I will be reopening the shop, and hopefully bookmarks will still be something that I sell. But anyways, these are this is just one of the many bookmarks I have. I have numerous bookmarks. I have even more than this, don't worry. I always have a bookmark that is laminated so that I can put my tabs on the back of it. Why do I do this? It's just easy access. It keeps the tabs in place. And if you buy these same tabs, which I get them from Amazon, it is usually these. So I buy all my tabs from Amazon. Every single supply that I use will be in an Amazon list in the description. So you just have to click on there and everything is in one place. It is an affiliate list, just so you know, but I do have everything right there for quick access. So when you buy these tabs, they come on one of these like little plastic ruler things. So you can totally just leave them on there and use that as a bookmark, but I like to select certain colors from multiple tab packs to make them match the cover. Why do I do this? It is purely for the aesthetic. There is no other reason for me. Again, remember, every single thing I say in this video is for me. So I like to match them to the cover. It's just for the aesthetic of seeing tabs that match the cover. That's all it is. So I usually select a bunch of different colors that match the cover and put them at the back of the bookmark, just so that everything is in one place. So after the tabs, I will always have a highlighter, a regular pen, and a glitter pen. So highlighters, I have been really liking these. I've got no idea what their name is. They don't have like a specific name. I know in the US they're called Alohaster, whatever you want to call those, on Amazon. In Canada, I look up highlighters and they're one of the first that pop up, and they're like cute Bible aesthetic highlighters, something like that. Again, linked in the description. But these are really, really good. They do not bleed through. I have used them multiple times, so I will insert a clip right here to show you what it looks like. It's a really nice color. They're very pastel. The colors are not too dark, and I really like that about them, because when I use a color that's too dark, it covers the words too much and I can't see it very well. And then on the other side, you can hardly tell that something is highlighted. So that's why I really, really like these. I do have a couple other highlighters that I like to use, but these are kind of like my ride or die. As of late, I used to use the Zebra Mildliner highlighters, and specifically the brush pens, because those were a little bit lighter and they wouldn't bleed through. The regular Mildliners would bleed through. But then I started trying a bunch of different highlighters out, and I found these, and I like completely ditched the Mildliners. So see, a year ago I swore by those, and a year later I swear by these. So you can just see that it's really a trial and error type of situation. That's how I came to find these highlighters. I strongly recommend them. They work great. So that's it for the highlighters. For the regular pen to write down my thoughts in the book, I swear by Muji pens. They are the only pen I use as of late. I also, though, I really, really like the Zebra Sarasa gel clip pens in the vintage color scheme set. I haven't used those in a while, not for any specific reason, just because I've been liking the Muji pens a little bit more. Again, not for any particular reason, just for the colors that I've been using. It's not because one writes better than the other. I do find that Muji pens write a little bit more smoothly, but those are kind of like my two favorite pens to just like write my thoughts in the book. I have not tried all that many though, so I'm not like a professional in the pen area yet. I'm still testing out new brands here and there. I have though recently found my new favorite gel pens, which are the what are these called? The Jelly Roll metallic pens. These are so nice. They write so smoothly and they're not too bold. I will say though, from the few times that I've tried these, they don't necessarily bleed through, but when you flip on the other side, there are some times that you can see that like you wrote something on the other side with them. So they don't bleed through, but you can see that something is there, which is not, it's not a problem, you know, it's not an issue. So those are kind of the primary supplies that I use. And then depending on the type of book I read, there are times that I'm gonna need post-its because I have so much to say that it doesn't fit in the margins. We're gonna look in Culty by Mariana Zapata. Either I have a theory or I just have so much to say, so I'm just gonna use some random post-its. Sometimes I use clear post-its, other times I just use paper post-its and I rip them up just for however long I need them for, and I just write whatever I have to say and I stick it in there. I will go over the types of things that I write on post-its afterwards, just to give you guys an idea of what makes me need this, other than like the fact that I need more space. So that's kind of like all the supplies that I personally use. I know a lot of people who use washi tape or stickers, or some even print pictures when they're really going all out with their annotations. That's not really it for me. I find it absolutely stunning. That's not the type of, those are not the types of annotations that I like to do, and that is completely fine. So now I've kind of given you an idea of the types of products I use. Now we're going to go into detail into how I use them. Starting off with the tabs. What are tabs for? What is the reason that you would even use tabs while annotating? Tabs are great to keep track of very specific things throughout the book. I always use about 7 to 10 different colors for 7 to 10 different categories. Now these categories will vary from genre to genre and even from book to book. That is something we'll talk about later when I tell you how I build my annotating systems. But basically, one color could mean cute and sweet moments, which means that every single time that I come across a cute and sweet moment, I'm going to take a tab and put it next to this specific moment. Now, I don't do this for like every single cute and sweet moment in a book, or if it's something funny, I'm not going to tab every single funny moment. You can. There is nothing wrong with that, but it can lead to like you needing more tabs, and it can be more expensive, and it can be, I don't know, it might be more troublesome, depends on the person. The way that I kind of choose whether I'm going to put a tab or not is how strong of a reaction it got out of me. If I'm reading something and it just makes me chuckle, like if I'm reading and I'm just like, I'm not going to tab that. I might, however, take my pen and write like, haha, or lol, or stuff like that. But if I'm reading and I just start laughing hysterically, then I absolutely need to put a tab next to that because I want to keep track of it. I will address what's the use of even keeping track of things a little later. So that is kind of the primary purpose of using tabs. It's kind of like, I'm going to try explaining this in like a school context. If you are reading an article and you want to keep track of things you want to discuss in class, or things you have questions for, or things you want to research on, you're going to use a different color for each of those categories, right? So if you're reading the article and you're like, I have no idea what that means, put a flag next to it so that you can ask your professor. Or, I really want to talk about this in class, I'm going to put a tab next to it so that I can remember and find it easily. That is one of the primary reasons why I put tabs, is to find things easily afterwards. Now, why would I flip through my book afterwards? That depends on the person. Personally, I do it because sometimes I just really feel like flipping through my book and seeing certain annotations. Other times, maybe I really need a good laugh and I'm just gonna look at my annotating system, find the color that's funny, and look for those in the book and just have a good laugh. Other times it might be because I'm working on writing a book review and I need to find specific quotes. This comes in really handy when it comes to writing book reviews, or if it's for my job, I have to write blog posts often about certain books, and if I've read the book and annotated it, it can be really helpful. Other occasions might be if I'm rereading the book. To see my old annotations is so entertaining. For example, I started annotating quite a while ago, so to flip through books and see those old annotations now that I have changed as a reader, my tastes have changed a lot, and the way I annotate has changed a lot as well. So it's really interesting to see the difference. It's interesting to see the growth. I'm sure there are other reasons, but those are kind of the main ones for me. Once again, on the topic of tabs, we're gonna move on to how I build my annotating systems. First off, where do I keep track of the system? I usually put it at the very front of the book, either on the first page or the second, or wherever there's space for it. I take one tab of each that I've chosen for the book, and then I will write over the tab, either over or sometimes next to the tab. Recently I've really liked writing on the tab, and to write on it I like to use a fine tip Sharpie pen. Works great. Don't use the Sharpie directly on the page though, right on the tab. So that's where I usually keep track of the system. And now how do I build it? If I'm reading a genre I've never read before and that I have no idea what to expect, I will build the system as I go. I know a lot of people might be intimidated by that. Don't worry, I'll give you some examples of how to have kind of a staple. But what I mean by building the system as I go is that I start reading without an annotating system whatsoever. And as I read, if I come across something that's like a hint, right away I will go at the front of the book where the annotating system is and write on one tab, hints. And that is the first category in my annotating system. And as I keep reading, if I come across something that's funny, I can add that to the system. So you build it as you go. If you are reading something and you're familiar with the genre, much like how I'm very familiar with romance, there are certain categories that you can always put that will always be a staple, right? So one category that is a staple for any book is quotes, your favorite quotes. So you already know that you can have that one. If you're reading romance, chances are you'll need one for romantic or kisses or cute and sweet or tension or spicy, or even if you're reading a rom-com, you'll want something for funny or I cackled or I can't breathe, or you know, those kinds of reactions. Other times you might be reading fantasy and you'll want to keep track of character or world development. You might be reading a book with a bunch of different characters and you'll want to keep track of the character development for that specific character. For example, in Culty, both characters grow a lot, so I could have had one tab for Sal, and every single time something happens to her where she grows as a person or her character develops, or we learn something about her, whether it be now or from her past, then I can use the Sal tab for Sal and one for Culty. And you can do this, I think it's really fun when there's a lot of characters, because you get to keep track of all the nitty-gritty details about each individual character. We've changed angles just a tiny bit just so I can rest my back. So that is primarily how I use tabs. Again, I'm 100% sure there are a million other ways to use them. I'm sure a lot of people use them differently than I do, and that's what's so fun about, you know, doing the research, looking into other bookish creators who talk about their annotating systems. You can learn from them, you can apply some of their methods to your own, you can compare, you can build and develop your understanding of annotating through watching a bunch of different people annotate or talk about their systems. So we've gone over where I buy the tabs, why I color code them, how I use them, how I build the systems, and why I use them. Which means we are done with talking about tabs. Now what we're going to be talking about is highlighting. So I personally like to highlight everything that really stands out to me or that I really resonate with, and I will do kind of a comparison of when I use highlighters versus when I use a pen versus when I use a glitter pen. But when I highlight, I usually highlight things that really spoke to me, or things that either, like, I don't know, maybe it took my breath away, or it's something that I really relate to as a person, or it's just something that I really want to stand out whenever I reread the book. I just want it to, like, stand out right away. My hands are so... Can you tell I'm cold? Oh my god! That's kind of how I use highlighters, and I don't really use them for anything else. Truly, it's just highlighting certain things that I really want to stand out. And that kind of answers the question of why I do it. I do it so stuff stands out whenever I reread it, whenever I reread the book, or whenever I'm flipping through the pages for quotes for a book review or for a blog post or for a YouTube video. It just makes it easier and it provides better access for whenever I need to flip through the book again. Now, as for glitter pens, I primarily use these to doodle. So sometimes I will underline, sometimes I will circle certain words in glitter pens, but most times I will draw little hearts, or I'll make little lines around a specific word, or I'll draw stars, or I'll just have fun doodling around certain words. If it's a love confession, I'll put a bunch of hearts around. You know, I just have fun with these. I find it so funny that I'm like, my hands are completely hidden. That's kind of the primary thing I use them for. But when it comes to underlining, that is one of the reasons why I use regular pens. Obviously, when I use a normal pen, it's to write my thoughts. Now, a lot of people ask me, what kind of things do you write? What kind of things do you annotate? And sometimes it can be like, I'll elaborate on a theory, or if I find a word and I don't know what it means, I'll look it up and then I'll write the definition next to it. Sometimes it's that kind of academic smart stuff. But most times it's just me being like, haha, LOL, that was so funny. I'm screaming, I'm crying, I don't know what's going on. What the heck is going on? What is he saying? What is she saying? What are they saying? What are they doing? You know, like, just, I am talking to the characters. That's the main thing I do. I talk to the characters as if they actually can talk back to me. So that's kind of the main reason why I use a normal pen. It's really to write my annotations. Other times I will underline or circle certain things. And this is another thing that people often ask me is, when do you know, like, if you should highlight or underline or do both, or just do one, and how do you know which one to do? For me, it's all about the gut feeling. I know some people strictly use the pen for dialogue and only the highlighter for monologue, or some people just like to use both all the time, or some people like to have a very strict system of like, I can only use this for this or that for that. I'm kind of just, I go with the flow. If I reach for something and I take the normal pen instead of the glitter pen, I'll just use the normal pen. In complete honesty, that's just what I do. Now, you can absolutely set a strict system. There is nothing stopping you. And that also means that there is nothing stopping you from just doing whatever you want. Sometimes I'll doodle with the normal pen. Sometimes I'll doodle with the glitter pen. Sometimes I'll doodle with both. And I realize this might not be super helpful for you, that I'm just saying I do whatever I want, but at the same time, letting your creativity and your intuition just take over is one of the best tips I can give when you're starting to annotate, especially since writing in a book can be very intimidating. Once you get used to the idea of it, it's great to just let yourself go. Once you feel ready, of course, don't pressure yourself, don't force yourself into doing it. Make sure that you grow comfortable with the idea of it, and that you grow comfortable with annotating and writing in your book and highlighting and doing all those things before you do it, right? Don't force yourself when you're not ready. It's kind of like riding a bike. You start off slow. Sometimes you'll have to put your foot down, and then you'll start up again. And then once you're comfortable, you just go with the flow. Sometimes you'll have a very specific destination. Other times you're just doing it for fun. That was a weird metaphor. I hope you kind of get the idea of it, and I also hope it makes sense. But that's kind of how I use those supplies. We'll do a little flip through of the types of things that I annotate in a rom-com, okay? Sometimes I just have like, I'll just underline and circle and put hearts. Or if like when they're about to share their first kiss, most times they get interrupted, right? Before they actually have their first kiss. So sometimes I'll be like, please don't get interrupted. Sometimes I'll just be like, heh, right? Because that was funny. Or LOL. Or I'll draw little faces. Or I'll say like, of course he was. Or I love this character. Or stop. Or I might talk about how much I'm enjoying the book, how much I'm not enjoying the book. You know, kind of putting a mini one-sentence review as I keep reading. And now that's kind of the type of stuff I write in rom-coms. Other times, like if I'm reading a book that also has a movie and I've seen the movie, for example, Howl's Moving Castle, I might compare things from the book to things from the movie as I'm reading. For example, like, you know, I might say like, oh, so that's what happened, or didn't this happen in the movie instead? Or, you know, stuff like that. I might do the comparison. And if I'm reading a book that is I don't know, maybe a mystery or thriller, then I will probably write my theories or who I think the killer is, what I think is gonna happen next. You know, I'm gonna write down what I think. I'm gonna write down everything that's in my head. And I said this in one of my other videos, but I said that I was talking about how when I read, I am reading the words, but I also have my mind going on in the background a little bit. So in this way, unfortunately, reading does not fully cancel out my inner voice. Sometimes I really wish it could, because it's very hard to have that thing just switched on 24/7. But that means that I'll be reading and I'll also be thinking, either like asking myself questions or talking to the character. And sometimes, for me, that kind of gets in the way of fully enjoying the book, which is why I love annotating so much. Because if I'm thinking like, oh yeah, he definitely did that, if I write it down, I can get that out of my head onto paper and I can enjoy what's going on in the book. So in that way, annotating kind of helps me enjoy the book better. I know for some people, do like the action of writing stuff down or highlighting something or doodling gets you out of the flow. For me, it gets me more in the flow because I get to kind of balance my attention in that way, because I'm writing down whatever I'm thinking of, letting me fully focus on what's happening in the next couple of pages or until the next time that I need to write something down. And I had mentioned I was going to talk about why I use post-its. Like, the primary reason is that I don't have enough space in the margins to write everything that I need to write. So I will usually just take a post-it, write whatever I need to, and stick it in the book. Most times I will stick it right above what I'm talking about. So like if a theory is explained and it's making me question some things, I'll write it on the post-it and I'll stick it right above the line that made me have this question. But honestly, it doesn't matter where you stick the post-it. I don't think it does. For me, it doesn't really. Like, I'll just stick the post-it at least on that page, you know. If you're on page 50 and you have a question and you write it on a post-it, you're not going to put it on page 205, right? You know, using post-its is rather self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go into too much detail for that. I'm trying to think what else. I guess the other thing I want to talk about are my two different annotating styles, because I kind of have two different ways to annotate now. I guess I have three, in a sense. So the first one is, if I'm really tired and I'm just reading a book to enjoy it, if I'm just really like, I'm sitting down and I'm telling myself, I'm not gonna try to make this aesthetic, I'm not gonna let that part of my brain take over, you know, and really focus on like doodling every, like here and there. I'm really going to enjoy this book. There are two things I can do. I can just read it and enjoy it and highlight the parts that really stand out to me, or the parts that I really want to pay attention to, and use tabs like I normally would. So I wouldn't like write my thoughts. Especially if it's an easy book to read, then I can just enjoy reading it, and sometimes I'll use tabs, sometimes I won't. It all depends on how I'm feeling. And then other times, if I'm reading a really complicated book, depending on the level of complicatedness, I might really need to write my thoughts down, or I might really need to just focus on what's going on and highlight parts that I have questions about or stuff like that, or have a tab for what the hell is going on, and I can put that tab in those scenes. It's also great for when I want to read a book a little bit faster than usual, so I don't have to stop every here and there to write my thoughts down. I can just really focus on the book, and if I have a question, then I can use my tab for questions. And then the other system is where I do the tabs, I do the writing, the highlighting, the doodling, all of that, but I primarily focus on just enjoying the book, and that is, again, the annotating system I use when I read romance, because I don't really need to analyze when I'm reading romance. The third one is usually the system that I use for my most complicated books, and that usually involves the post-its and a completely different mindset. This might not be super important for you guys, but I'm already talking about it, so might as well just finish this. If I'm reading a book that I know is more intricate, for example, The Atlas Six, Alone with You in the Other, The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, or Before the Coffee Gets Cold, or if I'm reading a book that is also a movie and I'm purely reading the book to kind of do the comparison, then I need to go into these books with a different mindset. Yes, I'm here to enjoy the book, but I am also here to look at the writing and look at what's beneath the writing. So in that case, not only is my mindset different, but my annotating systems will be different. My tabs will probably have different categories. I'll use more post-its, but it's very rare that I read and analyze books so thoroughly. It's kind of only happened a couple of times, and the very first one I did was Your Name by Makoto Shinkai, because I was reading that book to compare it to the movie, but also to fully understand the story that develops in that book, because in the movie there were a lot of parts that I wasn't sure I fully understood, and so I wanted to read the book to fully understand everything, not only enjoy the love story, but also understand what the heck it was about and what was happening. And I also wanted to kind of dissect the writing and analyze the myths that are included, you know. So that's kind of another annotating method, if that makes any sense. This video is really just me rambling about how I annotate, and hopefully you will find some tips somewhere in here. We've talked about the tabs. We've talked about highlighters. We've talked about normal pens. We've talked about glitter pens. We've talked about post-its, the types of annotations I write, my different annotating styles. I think we've covered it all. Does that, I think so. Okay. I guess that's gonna be that for today's video. If some of your questions have been left unanswered, please let me know in the comments, and I will try to keep track and make a list of all of those, and will do my very best to either answer in the comments or to make an entire new video addressing those questions. But yeah, that is how I annotate now as of February 2023. I hope that this video was able to give you some kind of guidance. I hope that I was not too confusing. And if you had been considering starting annotating, I hope that this video gives you that little push that you needed. As always, I love to see it, so if you have an Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, if you don't, you could follow me on Instagram. But I would love to see your annotations or what books you're reading or whatever is going on in the bookish world, so make sure to tag me. It brightens my day. I love to see that. It's already 5 o'clock. I was wondering why I was hungry. I really hope this video was helpful. I am going to let you guys go now. Thank you so much for taking some time in your day to watch my content, and thank you for watching this video. I hope I've answered some questions, and if I have sparked some questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Maybe someone else will be able to help you out, or maybe I will be able to reply to the comment or make an entirely new video answering those questions if I get like a bunch of them. So that will be that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.